So, good morning, everyone. The content of my presentation comes from a research project and data collection started in January 2016. Is it possible to get a measurement of the personal experience of correction? So let's start by defining the quality of life. In order to measure the personal experience of correction, we need to be able to measure quality of life. Vision has a considerable impact on quality of life, as Shehzad Narud said yesterday at the beginning of the day. Defining the quality of life is not easy. WHO states that quality of life is the perception of one's position in life from a cultural viewpoint and in the value system that one lives in, related to one's goals, expectations, standards, and concerns. So it is a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being. Cannot simply be defined as the lack of discomfort or disease. So how can the quality of life be measured? We have a questionnaire. Clinical measurements by themselves cannot provide an assessment of the impact of treatment. As we saw yesterday, for presbyopia, we have a multiplicity of treatments. Consequently, a questionnaire is particularly useful because we can have the same damage in different persons with different levels of disability. A questionnaire is a psychometric tool. We measure a psychological, subjective aspect. It is filled in by the patient, and reliability can be affected by the context of administration of the questionnaire. Just think, if a questionnaire is administered in a hurry or instructions are not clear, the results may change considerably. Let's look at the utilities and functions. A questionnaire helps assessing global functional conditions. At the same time, we can identify the potential and the abilities of the individual. It can accelerate functional assessment and make it independent of the observer. Quite frequently, the patient feels somehow conditioned by the answer to be given to the examiner. That doesn't happen with a questionnaire because it's observer independent and can provide a subjective measurement, which is also standardized. If we want to compare subjectivity of a person, we can do that using a questionnaire, so it is extremely useful for research as well. Let's look at the questionnaire. We have these questions, the items that can be subdivided into subscales, which define a given functional aspect of daily living. So items can be subdivided into subscales, and then we have the different choice options indicating the level of difficulties in a specific daily activity. 0 means no difficulty, and 3, maximum difficulty. So most questionnaires are in English, so they were developed and validated in another country. Cultural and linguistic differences may contribute to the questionnaire not being applicable in a given country. The original text and the translation may not correspond completely, so we need to carefully translate the questionnaire and revalidate the questionnaire to prove it's absolutely identical to the original. These are the different steps. First of all, a translation. So translation can be done from English into Italian, must be provided by a bilingual person that has experience in this sector. items have to be understandable. And then there's a back translation. So there's another bilingual person with experience in the sector back translating the same questionnaire. So the two versions are compared in order to come to a consensus. And then the last step is the assessment of validity and reliability of the questionnaire. The last step is subdivided into different sub-steps that you see in the list. Validation, it comes first and can be described as follows. So are we really measuring what we want to measure? Have we developed an adequate tool so we can relate the score to the variable to be tested? In this case, we're talking about visual satisfaction. So construction validity defines whether a measurement represents the framework of construction and interest. The factorial validation has been described on the slide. Items can be grouped up in factors that are given a score called the saturation of items. So we need to check the correlation between one item and the other, between the question and the other, and then assessing factor saturation of the questionnaire, of the translated questionnaire, which is compared to the saturation of the first questionnaire in English. Then the content is validated, and this means validating internal consistency. This is usually done using the Cronbach-Alpha coefficient, that's statistical measurement, and then the discrimination power. This is an optional step. It's not mandatory. This means that the population we're testing the questionnaire on is subdivided into groups. The sample is subdivided into groups, each group with particular features. And Fabrizio will go back to this later. Last point, reliability. You need to test that the questionnaire is reliable and repeatable. The questionnaire is administered a first time to a given population, and after a period of time, it's administered again to the same population in order to establish consistency between the two questionnaires. We have 3 validated questionnaires in Italy. You can see them here. The first one is the general one. We're testing visual satisfaction in different areas. The second one's on glaucoma, and the third one on amblyopia and strabismus. But there are 5 of them actually, but the first 2 we can find references in the literature, but the actual questionnaire is not easy to find because, well, they were validated a long time ago. English questionnaires are 60, so a large number, most of them concerning low vision. In low vision, you need to know the subjective response of these people because they have extreme disability, but answers can be extremely different. There are many general ones, many on the cataract, all validated in the 90s. At the time, it was important and necessary to know patient outcome after surgery. What about Italian questionnaires on near vision? That's the answer, nothing. No questionnaires in Italian. You need to be very meticulous, and there's a subscale on near vision, which belongs to this questionnaire, which is a general one that has a considerable impact factor. 28 citations been translated into 15 languages: Serbian, Vietnamese, Polish, German, and so on and so forth. So we have that one in Italian. Questionnaires in English for near vision There are quite a few. The last one was validated in 2012, and it is called an ADQ. We have 10 items, and it's meant for testing near vision. So summarizing, in total, we have about 60 questionnaires in English concerning the quality of life related to vision, and only 3 in Italian. But if for assessing near vision in English, we have an ANAVC, and in Italian, we have the subscale of NEIVFQ 25. So let's look at the take-home messages. Questionnaires can be useful for clinical activity, to predict efficient treatment, perform and speed up a functional assessment, compare subjectivity based on standardized measurements. Validating a questionnaire is a detailed process, and a simple translation is not enough. So if I use a questionnaire that I've simply translated from English into Italian, I can use it, but that was not scientifically validated. Questionnaires in Italian are only 3, while in English they have about 60, but they do exist. They can be useful. No questionnaires for near vision assessment in Italian. We have the NAVC in English. Before concluding, I'd like to thank Fabrizio very much. A research project has been completed with the cooperation of different institutions. Hopefully we can proceed into this direction. Thank you.